Which Asian country has the most churches? The answer might surprise you, not because it's obscure, but because it challenges common perceptions of what spirituality in Asia looks like. When people think of Asian faith traditions, their minds often go to ornate Buddhist temples, ancient Taoist shrines, or grand Hindu mandirs. But tucked within this vast and spiritually rich continent is another profound narrative, one shaped by the crosses atop steeples, the echoes of hymns, and the quiet endurance of Christian faith that has taken root in unexpected places. Asia is a land of contrasts and complexity. It's home to both the oldest religions known to mankind and some of the youngest, to ultra-modern megacities and remote mountain villages untouched by time. And within this cultural mosaic lie some of the most breathtaking churches in the world, places of worship that range from towering Gothic cathedrals built during colonial times to quaint hand-built chapels nestled amid rice terraces or perched on seaside cliffs. These churches are more than structures. They are stories carved in stone, prayers painted in stained glass, and testimonies of hope that have weathered wars, persecution, and political upheaval. They reflect a faith that didn't always arrive peacefully, but which has endured and transformed, adapting to local customs and even fusing with indigenous identities. They are sacred spaces where past and present meet, where ancient bells ring out over bustling marketplaces, and where Sunday worship is still held beneath frescoed ceilings painted a century ago. In this video, we're setting out on a journey through 10 Asian countries that are home to the highest number of churches. But this isn't just a numbers game. It's an exploration of beauty, history, and humanity. For each country, we'll dive into the origins of Christianity in the region, the most iconic and culturally significant churches, the communities that keep them alive, and the ways these houses of worship continue to inspire, serve, and shape local culture even today. What you'll discover might upend your assumptions. Countries you never associated with Christianity might reveal deep roots of faith. Others might surprise you with how Christianity has blended into their cultural fabric, quietly influencing education, healthcare, and social development. So sit back and let your heart and imagination travel. Number 10, Sri Lanka. A teardrop-shaped island in the Indian Ocean, where the turquoise waters kiss the shores of a land steeped in both ancient tradition and enduring spiritual hunger. In Sri Lanka, Christianity may be a minority faith, but its presence is anything but minor. Beneath the turquoise sky of the Indian Ocean, where the wind carries stories older than time, lies an island wrapped in mystery, devotion, and quiet strength. Here, more than 5,000 churches stand, not as mere monuments of stone, but as living witnesses to a spiritual legacy that has endured conquest, colonization, and change. These churches are not simply places to pray. They are cathedrals of memory, carved by human hands and sealed by divine intention. They are architectural psalms, echoing with hymns sung by generations, layered in incense and candlelight. Each one is a heartbeat of history, a silent keeper of centuries, where beauty and belief merge like the meeting of sky and sea. At the crown of this spiritual landscape rises St. Lucia's Cathedral in Colombo, a towering masterpiece of Gothic revival architecture. Its soaring spires pierce the sky like prayers cast upward. Intricate stained glass paints sunlight into sanctity. Stone colonnades march like guardians down a sanctuary where every footstep resonates with the presence of those who came before. Within its vast, hallowed halls, time feels suspended. The very air hums with reverence. Christianity first arrived on these shores in the 16th century, not by force but by sails and salt, brought by Portuguese missionaries and merchants. Over time, Dutch and British influences deepened the roots of this faith, embedding it into the fabric of education, healthcare, and social service. Many of Sri Lanka's most enduring institutions, its hospitals, its schools, its charities, trace their origin to Christian missions whose compassion reach far beyond creed. But what truly sets these churches apart is not their elegance or endurance. It is their spiritual intimacy with daily life. In Sri Lanka, faith is not a separate ritual. It is a rhythm woven into the ordinary moments. These churches pulse with community life. They are sanctuaries for the soul and sanctuaries for the people. They open their doors not only to Christians but to Buddhists, Hindus, and Muslims alike, offering not division but welcome, not dogma but shared dignity. One of the most stirring images of this unity unfolds each year during the Feast of St. Anthony, where thousands gather, regardless of belief, to seek blessings, offer prayers, and stand shoulder to shoulder in sacred harmony. It is a celebration not of religion alone, but of what connects us: the longing for grace, the hope for healing, the reverence for something greater than ourselves. As the ancient Stoic philosopher Chrysippus once said, "The universe itself is a city shared by gods and men." And in Sri Lanka, that truth comes to life, where churches, temples, mosques, and shrines rise not in opposition, but in quiet conversation. In a world often divided by creed and conflict, Sri Lanka's churches stand as lighthouses of coexistence, reminding us that when faith is open-handed, it does not build walls. It builds bridges. It does not silence difference. It sings in harmony. Number 9, Myanmar. A country where ancient mountains whisper the prayers of forgotten generations, and where faith, like the monsoon river, cuts quietly through stone and time. Nestled between gilded pagodas and mist-shrouded forests, Myanmar is a land shaped by silence, struggle, and sacred endurance. Though Christianity is not the dominant faith here, it has left an indelible imprint, one not chiseled by power, but engraved through patience. With more than 6,200 churches rising like lanterns of hope across its hills and valleys, this nation bears witness to a spiritual resilience as enduring as the soil beneath its feet. In the lives of the Chin, Kachin, and Karen peoples, Christianity is not just a belief system. It is a lifeblood, a heritage passed down through songs sung in secret, scriptures held close to the chest, and courage etched into every hymn. For these communities, faith is a fire that warms identity, that guides through exile, and that anchors them when the world above is trembling. The gospel arrived in Myanmar not with flags or armies, but with worn-out sandals and compassionate hands. 19th century European missionaries came not to conquer, but to serve. They built no palaces, only classrooms. They waged no battles, only fought ignorance. And in the remotest corners, where roads disappeared and maps turned blank, they taught the alphabet by lamplight, delivered medicine under jungle canopies, and prayed beside bamboo beds where no other help arrived. Over time, these churches evolved beyond sanctuary. They became the soul of the village, schools for children whose parents had never read, clinics for the sick where hospitals did not exist, wells of wisdom in times of chaos. These were not merely religious centers. They were beacons, drawing people together not with dogma, but with dignity. Among these sacred places, Sacred Heart Cathedral in Mandalay stands as a red brick elegy to faith. Built in 1899, its walls are not just architectural, they are archival. They have absorbed the trembling prayers of generations, stood through decades of turbulence, and remain upright even when institutions crumbled. Inside, the air hangs heavy, not with incense alone, but with the unshakable spirit of perseverance. And even today, in the wake of natural disasters, political unrest, and economic struggle, Myanmar's churches continue to rise, not only in structure, but in service. In remote villages where governments falter, the church steps forward. It becomes the teacher when there is no school. It becomes the nurse when there is no clinic. It becomes the shelter when the storms come and the world turns away. In the ashes of burned sanctuaries, new chapels rise, not from foreign aid, but from the calloused hands of local believers who build not out of luxury, but out of love. Their courage speaks what words cannot. True faith is not forged in peace, but in pressure. It is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of conviction when everything else has fallen away. As the Stoic philosopher Zeno once wrote, "No loss should be more regrettable to us than losing our own self-respect." In Myanmar, that self-respect is braided into the identity of its Christian communities. Their resilience is not loud, it is steadfast. Their churches are not showpieces, they are shelters. And their belief, tested by time, has not merely survived, it has become the cornerstone upon which whole communities still stand. Number 8. Thailand. A land of golden serenity, where the air vibrates with the soft chants of saffron-robed monks and ancient temples reflect like mirages on lotus ponds. To the outside eye, it may seem like a place where only one faith blooms. But hidden among the pagodas and prayer flags is another quiet current, one that flows with grace, patience, and quiet conviction. Over 7,000 churches rise across this deeply Buddhist kingdom, not as monuments of conquest, but as whispers of another sacred story, carried on the wind like incense, subtle, fragrant, and persistent. In a nation where Buddhism is not just a religion, but a rhythm of life, Christianity did not arrive with noise, but with nuance. It came not with sword or empire, but with scripture and service. Introduced in the 16th century by Portuguese missionaries, Christianity entered Thailand not as a rival faith, but as a respectful guest. Unlike regions where evangelism stormed through gates of power, here it walked barefoot, slowly building trust through kindness, through healing, through education. And though the Christian population remains a modest minority, its influence lingers, like a scent remembered, like light that lingers even after the candle has been blown out. In the heart of Bangkok stands one of its most enduring symbols, Assumption Cathedral. Built in 1821, its red brick facade and European-style arches stand in elegant contrast to the gilded stupas surrounding it. Yet this contrast is not confrontation, it is conversation. Inside, sunlight filters through intricate stained glass, casting kaleidoscopes of color onto pews worn smooth by devotion. This cathedral is more than stone and structure. It is a dialogue in architecture, a meeting point of east and west, heaven and earth, stillness and strength. But the heart of Thai Christianity does not beat in cathedrals alone. It beats in mountain villages and quiet provinces, where Protestant communities took a different road, the road of humility, of service, of unseen sacrifice. In northern Thailand, where access to education and healthcare has long been limited, Christian missions became more than places of worship. They became schools where children learned their first letters. They became clinics where the sick found relief. They became orphanages where the forgotten were remembered. Faith in these corners did not preach. It practiced. It did not convert. It cared. It did not impose. It healed. And over time, something rare unfolded. Not tension, but tenderness between beliefs. Thai Christians and Buddhists have not built walls but woven bridges, strong, flexible, and deeply human. Their coexistence is not merely peaceful, it is beautiful. It is proof that when spirituality is rooted in love, different paths can bloom in the same garden. Even Christmas in Thailand tells this story. Among Christian communities, the season is celebrated with joy, reverence, and a distinctly Thai flavor. Nativity plays are reimagined with local music. Carol services blend ancient hymns with bamboo flutes and traditional instruments. In the streets of Bangkok, the lights of Christmas shimmer not in competition with Buddhist reverence, but as a complement to the country's open-hearted spirit. Here, faith is not about replacing, but reflecting, showing that in every heart there is room for mystery, for meaning, for something greater than self. As Viktor Frankl once wrote, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose. In our choice lies our freedom. Thailand, in that space, chose respect, chose harmony, chose to let faith grow not by force, but by flourishing quietly, like orchids blooming in the shade. Number 7. Vietnam. A land where mist rises from emerald hills like incense from an altar, where ancient customs meet concrete skylines, and where faith, though once buried beneath the weight of history, has never stopped breathing. At the very heart of Ho Chi Minh City, amidst the buzz of scooters and the rhythm of urban life, stands a cathedral that rises like a song of memory, Notre Dame Cathedral Basilica of Saigon. Built in 1880 with bricks shipped across oceans from Toulouse, it is not simply a church. It is a monument of layered meaning, a relic of colonial ambition, transformed into a symbol of spiritual endurance. Its twin bell towers stretched nearly 200 feet into the sky, standing like sentinels of prayer above the city, casting long shadows over the present, while pointing unshakably toward eternity. This cathedral is more than stone and stained glass. It is a silent witness to the tensions and transitions of Vietnam's past. Each brick speaks of another era, and yet within its walls, faith continues. Renewed with every candle lit, every hymn lifted heavenward in whispered Vietnamese. While Catholicism remains the most visible expression of Christianity in Vietnam, a quieter revolution has been unfolding. In the highlands of the north and the hills of the central provinces, among the ethnic minorities long forgotten by infrastructure and policy, Protestant Christianity has taken root, not with loud declarations, but with hands that serve and hearts that endure. In these regions where roads are dirt and roofs are tin, churches are often the only source of light after dusk and the only voice of hope before dawn. They function as much more than places of worship. They are classrooms for the uneducated, clinics for the sick, sanctuaries for the weary. In the absence of government aid, the church has become a social spine, uplifting not just souls but entire communities. But the story of Christianity in Vietnam is also a story of shadows. In times of political upheaval, faith was pushed underground. Churches were shuttered, pastors silenced, scriptures confiscated. Yet faith is not easily extinguished. It did not vanish. It simply went inward, growing in secret, carried in memory, hidden in songs passed from generation to generation. Today, Vietnam's Christian community stands not in defiance, but in quiet strength, embracing modernity with one hand while holding fast to sacred tradition with the other. In a country where motorways now run where rice fields once stood, and where ancient chants blend with pop music on city streets, the church bell still rings on Sunday morning, soft, steady, insistent. Faith here is not ornamental, it is elemental. It has become part of the national rhythm. Whether it rings from basilicas in the city or rises from simple wooden chapels deep in the mountains, Christianity has woven itself into the Vietnamese soul, subtle but unshakable, like a root beneath stone that refuses to die. As the saying goes, strength does not come from physical power, but from an unbreakable will. That will, patient, persistent, prayerful, is etched into every cross lifted in secret, every child taught to read in a church school, every elder whose faith withstood the storms of history. Vietnam's churches may differ in style and scale, but they all carry the same light, a light that refuses to go out. In number 6, Japan. A nation where the sacred often hides in silence, where Shinto shrines sleep beneath the shade of cherry blossoms, and where spirituality is expressed more in stillness than in sound. And yet, beneath this hushed reverence lies an unlikely chorus, a quiet but powerful movement of faith that has endured the weight of centuries. In concert halls across the country, gospel choirs raise their voices, not in protest, but in praise. Their harmonies stir something ancient within the listener, something universal. Thousands of Japanese, many who have never stepped foot inside a church, find themselves moved by rhythms that did not originate here, but have found a home in the heart. It is not mere entertainment. It is a sacred resonance, a bridge of sound stretching from the sanctuaries of the West to the contemplative soul of the East. In this music, faith flows not as doctrine, but as emotion, deep, human, transcendent. Yet the presence of Christianity in Japan extends far beyond the concert stage. It has taken root in classrooms, in hospitals, in humanitarian missions. Sophia University, Doshisha University, and many of Japan's most respected academic institutions stand as living legacies of Christian visionaries who sought not only to preach, but to teach. These schools were not built to convert, but to cultivate character, to nurture minds grounded in ethics, global understanding, and compassionate service. This is a faith that has never relied on dominance or numbers. In a society where religion is often private, internal, even unspoken, Japanese Christians walk a path defined by dignity, restraint, and quiet resolve. Their commitment is not less because it is less visible. It is often more powerful precisely because it is hidden, like a lantern glowing within. Their churches may not scrape the skies or command city centers. Many are modest in size, humble in appearance, but each one holds within it a flame that refuses to be extinguished. They are sanctuaries of patience, of perseverance, of deep-rooted hope that has weathered storms both political and cultural. For this is not a faith that has been untested. Christianity in Japan has passed through fire, from its introduction by Portuguese missionaries in the 16th century, to brutal suppression under the Tokugawa shogunate, to centuries of forced silence. Believers once gathered in caves, whispered hymns in the dark, etched crosses in secret upon stone. But like seeds buried beneath volcanic ash, faith did not die, it waited. Today it grows again. Not in mass movements or dramatic declarations, but in gentle gestures, in lives lived with quiet conviction. It grows in the student who studies to serve others, in the nurse who treats the sick with dignity, in the old woman who bows her head in prayer in a chapel few notice. As the philosopher Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." That why still burns in Japan's Christian community. Not loud, not large, but eternal. It is a testament not to power, but to perseverance, not to conquest, but to the capacity of the human soul to believe, even in silence. And number 5, Indonesia. A vast archipelago where islands drift like prayers upon the sea, and where faiths have long danced together beneath the same tropical sun. Though often known as the world's largest Muslim-majority nation, Indonesia is also home to a Christian presence that is far more than a historical footnote. It is a living testament to the spiritual complexity and cultural richness of this diverse land. Christianity first touched Indonesian shores in the 16th century, brought not by empires of conquest, but by ships of trade. Portuguese missionaries arrived with scripture in one hand and salt in the other. Under Dutch colonial rule, the faith spread further, embedding itself not just in coastal towns, but deep within the cultural soul of entire regions. What began as fragile missionary outposts became deep-rooted legacies, shaped as much by hardship as by hope. Today, the Christian presence in Indonesia stretches from magnificent cathedrals in busy cities to quiet chapels hidden in misty mountain villages, each one a vessel of story, sacrifice, and sacred tradition. Among the most powerful symbols of Indonesia's religious harmony is the Jakarta Cathedral, a Gothic revival masterpiece completed in 1901. Its soaring spires rise directly across from Istiqlal Mosque, the largest mosque in Southeast Asia. Together they form not a contradiction, but a conversation, an architectural embrace of spiritual coexistence. Inside the cathedral, sunlight filters through stained glass like colored prayer. The arches bend not only with European elegance, but with time itself, reminding us that true beauty lies not just in design, but in dialogue. The cathedral stands as a bridge between past and present, between faiths and cultures, between heaven and earth. In regions like North Sulawesi and East Nusa Tenggara, Christianity is not just a belief system, it is the heartbeat of local identity. Churches here are not only spiritual sanctuaries but cultural anchors, shaping the rhythm of village life. On Sundays, the air fills with the sound of hymns, blending with ocean breeze and forest rustle. Religious festivals bloom with both reverence and revelry, reflecting a spirituality that is both deeply felt and beautifully expressed. Christmas in Indonesia is more than a holiday. It is a celebration of light in every form. Homes are strung with lanterns, choirs fill sanctuaries with soul-stirring harmonies, and entire communities gather in streets not divided by difference, but united in devotion. In this nation, faith is not merely personal, it is communal, generational, and alive. What allows multiple religions to thrive side by side in Indonesia is not merely tolerance, but shared values, a collective understanding that difference is not a threat, but a strength. As the philosopher Zenoidium once said, "True wisdom lies in understanding and balance." Indonesia has woven that wisdom into its very fabric, crafting a spiritual mosaic where each faith adds color, depth, and grace. Christianity here has endured not through sheer numbers, but through the unyielding conviction of its keepers. Ordinary believers whose quiet faith has outlasted storms of change, cultural pressure, and historical shifts. Their endurance is the reason churches still rise across these islands, not as relics of the past, but as testaments of a faith that lives, adapts, and still speaks today. Number 4. China. A land where time runs deep and the soul of a civilization beats to the rhythm of dynasties, ideologies, and ancient wisdom. From Confucian courts to Taoist peaks, from Buddhist pagodas to modern skyscrapers, China is a nation where the sacred and the sovereign have long shared space. And in this vast tapestry of tradition, Christianity has quietly woven its thread, not loudly, not easily, but unmistakably. The first seeds were sown along the Silk Road in the 7th century, when Nestorian missionaries arrived like pilgrims of a foreign dawn. Though those early roots struggled to thrive in Confucian soil, they left behind whispers, inscriptions, manuscripts, forgotten tombstones that foretold of a deeper future harvest. It would take centuries before those whispers became a voice. During the Ming and Qing dynasties, Jesuit missionaries entered not as conquerors, but as scholars. Fluent in the language, respectful of the culture, they found favor in the imperial court by interlacing Christian theology with Confucian ethics. A meeting of East and West, not in battle, but in balance. And yet this delicate bridge would not be without fractures. It was in the 19th century that Christianity surged forward, through the sales of Protestant and Catholic missions, through printing presses in village chapels, through sermons that stirred both hearts and upheaval. The Taiping Rebellion, among the bloodiest civil conflicts in human history, erupted in part from Christian ideology misaligned with political despair. It was a warning that faith, when untethered from wisdom, can set fire to both chains and fields. Then came the 20th century, with its trials by revolution. The rise of communism brought with it a new silence. Churches were shuttered, leaders imprisoned, and the faithful forced underground. But faith, true faith, does not yield to walls. It migrates, it adapts, it survives. Like water, Christianity in China found new paths, flowing unseen through apartments, rural homes, factories and farms. House churches, some no more than whispered gatherings in candlelight, became the beating heart of a movement too fluid to suppress, too rooted to remove. In cities teeming with steel and surveillance, in villages overlooked by policy and progress, people continued to meet, not for rebellion, but for resurrection. Today, over 25,000 churches dot the landscape. Some are state-recognized through the Three Self-Patriotic movement, while others remain unregistered, hidden in plain sight, yet alive with worship, prayer, and perseverance. Despite pressure, surveillance, and legal constraint, faith thrives, not by defiance, but by discipline, devotion, and divine endurance. As the Stoic thinker Zenoidium once observed, the goal of life is to live in harmony with nature. In China, Christianity has survived not by overpowering its surroundings, but by blending into them, learning their rhythm, understanding their flow, becoming part of the nation's spiritual current without needing to control it. It is not a revolution of thunder. It is a quiet reformation of the heart. And though often invisible to the untrained eye, it moves like an underground river, slow, steady, and unstoppable. Christianity in China has become not just a foreign presence, but a local pulse, a testimony to belief that bends but never breaks. Number 3, South Korea, a land where neon skylines rise beside ancient palaces and where faith is not merely practiced, but embodied in the very architecture of national life. With more than 12,000 churches scattered across its cities and mountains, and nearly 28% of its people identifying as Christian, South Korea stands as a beacon of modern spiritual awakening, not just in Asia, but on the global stage. It is a nation where prayer meets progress, where revival is not a moment but a movement. At the heart of this movement stands Yodo Full Gospel Church, located in the beating center of Seoul. With over 500,000 members, it is the largest Pentecostal church in the world, a sanctuary not just of scale, but of spiritual fire. Its vast halls echo with voices lifted in praise, a living symbol of how deeply Christianity has embedded itself into the Korean soul. Yet this church is not merely a place of worship. It is a monument to resilience, built in the shadow of war, economic hardship, and national transformation. Christianity in South Korea is not confined to Sunday morning rituals or cathedral spires. It has become the bloodstream of society, pulsing through education, medicine, politics, and philanthropy. Some of the nation's most influential universities, hospitals, and social service centers trace their roots to Christian missions. In classrooms, the values of integrity and service are taught alongside science and technology. In hospitals, healing is offered not just as procedure, but as an act of compassion. And in the political arena, many leaders cite faith as the compass that shapes their policies and decisions. This is a country where megachurches rise like spiritual citadels, casting long shadows over glittering financial districts. Proof that belief here is not retreating in the face of modernity, but growing in tandem with it. Sunday services attract thousands, yet the most powerful expressions of faith are often found not in grandeur, but in daily sacrifice. Youth mentoring programs, community outreach, refugee support, and missions work that reaches far beyond national borders. Indeed, South Korea has become one of the leading missionary-sending nations in the world, a remarkable reversal of roles for a country that, not long ago, was itself the recipient of missionary aid. Today, Korean missionaries carry the gospel into remote villages, crowded cities, and even hostile territories, bringing with them a message born out of their own national testimony, that from ashes can rise fire, and from hardship can emerge healing. Faith in Korea is not a relic of the past. It is a force of the present and a vision for the future. It is woven into national identity, not through coercion but conviction, not through dominance but devotion. Here, tradition and technology hold hands. Worship services blend hymns with LED walls, choirs with contemporary rhythms. But beneath the modern forms lies a faith as ancient as the cross and as enduring as the mountains of Gangwon. In South Korea, Christianity is not simply surviving, it is defining. It is the quiet engine behind a nation's transformation, the moral scaffold of its growth, and the spiritual flame that continues to burn, bright, bold, and unafraid. Number 2, the Philippines. More than just a tropical archipelago, this nation is the beating heart of Christianity in Asia, where faith is not a fragment of identity, but its foundation. With an astonishing 65,000 churches, the Philippines holds the unmatched distinction of being home to the most churches in Asia, a testament not to history alone, but to a living, breathing devotion that continues to shape every facet of national life. Here, over 85% of the population identifies as Christian, with Roman Catholicism reigning as the spiritual backbone of the nation. But faith in the Philippines is not confined to ritual. It is woven into culture, inscribed into memory, and etched into the soul of its people. From the pulse of its cities to the quiet of its villages, belief permeates festivals, politics, education, art, and daily existence. The journey began in 1521 with the arrival of Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan under the Spanish crown. What started as a mission of exploration soon became an empire of evangelization. Over the course of more than 300 years of Spanish rule, Christianity was not merely introduced, it was intertwined with every fiber of Filipino society. Grand cathedrals were raised beside humble chapels. Parish churches became community pillars. Faith became a language spoken not just in prayers, but in architecture, customs, and tradition. Among the sacred landmarks that grace the islands, San Agustin Church in Manila stands supreme. Built in 1607 and designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it is the oldest stone church in the country, a fortress of Baroque beauty and a survivor of earthquakes, wars, and centuries of upheaval. Its carved wooden doors, painted ceilings, and time-worn pews speak not only of resilience but of unbroken reverence, passed down from generation to generation. But churches in the Philippines are not mere buildings. They are living organisms of society, serving as community centers, schools, shelters, and sanctuaries. They house charities, medical missions, educational programs, and grassroots initiatives that reach the nation's most vulnerable. They are at once spiritual homes and lifelines, where faith is not just preached, it is practiced with purpose and passion. This devotion finds its most dramatic expression in national celebrations that blur the line between the sacred and the spectacular. The Feast of the Black Nazarene, held every January, sees millions of barefoot pilgrims flood the streets of Manila, braving exhaustion and chaos to touch a wooden statue they believe holds healing power. It is not merely a religious event, it is a nationwide exhale of hope, humility, and holy desperation. In the Philippines, Christianity is not simply present, it is pulsating. It is the rhythm of resilience, the anthem of ancestry, and the light that carries a nation forward. In every church bell that rings, every candle lit, every hymn sung beneath a corrugated tin roof or cathedral dome, there echoes the same truth. Here faith does not fade, it flourishes. Number 1, India, a land where history is carved into stone and devotion flows like a sacred river through the veins of civilization. In this nation of staggering religious diversity, where temples crown hillsides and mosques echo with centuries of prayer, Christianity has quietly endured, not as an outsider, but as a deep and dignified presence woven into the spiritual fabric of the nation. Though Christians account for only 2.3% of the population, India is home to over 60,000 churches, a number that speaks not to dominance, but to depth. Each sanctuary, from towering cathedrals to modest chapels, is a living testament to the resilience of faith, carried across generations by hands that served, minds that taught, and hearts that believed when belief was not easy. The story of Christianity in India stretches back almost 2 millennia, to the footsteps of Saint Thomas the Apostle, who is believed to have arrived on the Malabar coast in 52 AD. His journey marked not the conquest of culture, but the beginning of a sacred conversation between East and West, tradition and revelation, local soul and global spirit. Today, regions like Kerala, Goa, and the northeastern states stand as spiritual strongholds, where churches are not just places of worship, but pillars of society. In Kerala, the liturgy echoes in Syriac hymns passed down from antiquity. In Goa, the colonial-era basilicas rise like majestic relics of Baroque devotion. And in Nagaland, Mizoram, and Meghalaya, vibrant evangelical communities fill the hills with songs of revival, making Christianity not just practiced, but alive. But the impact of Christianity in India is not confined to its sanctuaries. It flows into classrooms, hospitals, and homes. Christian-founded universities, medical institutions, and charities have long stood at the vanguard of social upliftment. They offer world-class education, healthcare to the marginalized, and hope to the forgotten, serving not only believers, but all who walk through their doors. In a land where gods are many and beliefs are vast, Christianity in India has never sought to erase. It has sought to embrace. It has adapted, absorbed, and harmonized. Its churches reflecting European facade on the outside, while resonating with Indian culture within. From architectural fusion to linguistic diversity, the church here speaks not in one voice, but in a symphony of tongues and traditions. Christianity in India is not a story of domination. It is a story of devotion, not one of power, but of perseverance, built not on force, but on the quiet labor of teachers, nurses, pastors, and parents who planted seeds of faith that took root in rocky soil and still bloom today. And so, our journey through the 10 Asian countries with the most churches comes to a close. We've wandered through centuries-old cathedrals, colonial sanctuaries, and remote chapels carved by hands of hope. These places of worship are not just landmarks, they are living witnesses to the resilience of belief, the power of community, and the beauty of spiritual diversity. Which country, which church, or which tradition captured your heart? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found meaning in this journey, don't just watch, be part of it. Hit subscribe, tap the notification bell, and join us as we continue to explore the world's most sacred stories, one step and one sanctuary at a time.